Hello, hello, everybody. Good morning, good morning. Welcome to another School of Thought podcast episode. I also have another wonderful, amazing guest that I am so happy to introduce this morning. I'm going to read a little bit about his bio, and after that, I'm going to give him the floor for him to share his his bio with you. But I'm going to tell you what attracted me to this particular to Mr. Ernest, what he said. But I'm gonna read a little bit about Mr. Ernest. His name is Mr. Ernest James. Call him Mr. Ernest James, the podcaster master. Is a family man, a father, a friend with heart for people. It says a podcaster. I want to say the master podcaster, a mentor, a speaker. Ernest has dedicated his life to inspiring and uplifting others. I like that. His mission is to help others deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problems, okay? Heal from your pain and fulfill your purpose. I like that order because you have to first deal with the problem, heal before you fulfill your purpose. I love that. He spreads a message of hope and healing wherever he goes. He believes that we must heal ourselves. When we heal ourselves, we heal our family. Our family heal our community heal the world. Love I love that spectrum. Ernest was raised in a two-parent household, but recognized the effect of fatherlessness on his extended family and friends who were being raised by single mothers. Ernest is determined to heal families by helping fatherless mothers and daughters heal from their father's wound with his Friend to Fatherless Daughters campaign and mentoring dads and son with his MAN, that man, M period, A period, N period, up, man activating newly untapped potential male mentoring program. First of all, what caught my eyes with you was the Friend to Fatherless Daughters campaign. And I was like, how he's talking about fatherless daughters and he's a man, even though I know that. So I'm like,
Mhm.
I wonder if there's a story behind that. So I'm interested
Definitely.
in that story and I can't wait till you share. So I'm going to let you share yourself with the audience and then I'm going to come back with my questions.
Yeah. First of all, let me say thank you so much for being here. I am Ernest James. I am a mental health advocate, also a speaker, podcaster, author, all of those things. And I always say at my core, I'm just a person who loves people and just always had a heart for people, has been my prayer. Actually, the prayer that I got from my mom, just growing up in the church, and that was her prayer. She would always say, "God, give me a love for your people." And so I grew up just repeating that same prayer, like, Lord, I want you to do the same for me. And so I just grew up, I always just had a heart for people, a heart to help people. And, through my travels and through my life experiences, that's just what I do. I just try to help people the best way that I can. Which led into me being a speaker, a preacher, a podcaster, writing a few ebooks and things of that nature. Just really just to get out the message to help people, and through my own experience, I kind of was led to the deal, heal, fulfill, which is what my whole motto is to help people to deal with their problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill their purpose. And because that was the exact process that I went through to get me to here. And so, just in a nutshell, that's me, man. Just really just having a heart for people and want to help people with any way that I can. And so that's how, I'm here.
I am like jumping off my seat, right? Because I'm a very detailed person and I notice my eyes are open to more seed than the tree. So it's something that you said that caught my attention. To me, that was the seed that started your journey. When you said you heard your mother pray, teach me how to help. And that's what it said, right? Teach me how to help other people.
Yeah.
And you
To have a love for your people.
a
Right.
love for your people.
Yeah.
And then you
Because
taught that as that
yeah.
birthed your whole thing, because that's exactly what you're doing from that prayer of show me and teach me how to love your
Mhm.
people came from your mother. and then you picked it up, and because people don't even understand how children pick up things, whether good or bad,
Yeah.
from parents. Whether in you, a prayer ministry was birthed out of me, my mother taking me to a prayer mountain as a child and watching them pray, and I remember saying, I want to be just like that.
Yeah.
So that's how a lot of our uh, mission and vision and purpose was birthed, because things that happen. So I noticed when you said that, like, wow, that caught my attention,
Yeah.
that was birthed out of your mother saying that to you. So
Yeah. And I
that
and
was
I and
that was
I
good.
I'll tap on that a little bit so I don't send us a whole nother way. But so I'm a PK, right? So
Right.
I come from a long line of preachers and pastors in my family.
Mhm.
And being able, so my grandmother pastored our church. And when my grandmother passed away, my mom became the pastor, right? So if we go back, when my grandmother was still the pastor, after I got out of high school, I moved in with my grandmother, and I stayed with her. And so I was able to see the back end of the church, right? The side that nobody sees, that's not up front at the pulpit, the phone calls and the late prayers and people coming over and the counseling. So I was able to see all of that,
Mhm.
right? And so I knew how much of how taxing that could be, especially if you didn't have the correct boundaries around it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then also how other people may uh, indulge in ministry, but don't necessarily have a heart for the people. They have a heart
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
platform. You know what I'm saying? They have a heart for the mic, but they don't necessarily have a heart for the people. And so
Yeah.
my mom always was really genuine in that, long before she became a pastor, just being a regular minister, just, and even I'll even take minister off the table, just being herself
Mhm.
as a person that loved people, and people just was drawn to her because of her kindness and her heart. And
Mhm.
that was her prayer. And so again, me growing up and hearing her say that, and knowing early that I would be in some type of ministry. I knew it. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, all right, for whatever reason, I got this feeling I'm gonna be in front of somebody's mic, and so that became my prayer at a young age. Like, Lord, I want to have a love for your people too. I don't want to just get up and just be saying stuff just to be, because I have the opportunity to be on the platform, or because somebody gave me a mic, but I really want my words to be seasoned with grace, as we would say growing up,
Exactly.
to be able to really make a difference in the
Have
hearts of
Have you
people.
ever told your mother that that's what happened because of that prayer that she said? You ever told her?
No, we haven't. We weren't able to have. My mom passed away now,
I'm
but
sorry.
we never necessarily had that conversation.
Okay.
But definitely other conversations once I really got involved in ministry and things of that nature, and especially after she became the pastor, and then me, when my grandmother was a pastor, I kind of seen things from a distance. I was observant, but I seen it at a distance. When my mom became the pastor, then it was up front, like right here. And even with some of that, and I'm not gonna go down this road, but even with some of that, our family had to step in to put some of those boundaries in place, because people would call all kinds of morning, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. And my mom, being the person that she was, she would always answer. And so we had to be like, all right, you call my house, my mom house, call her in the morning,
For
pray
the
for yourself
structure,
and
you
to the
added
left. Yeah,
structure.
we
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
take, she'll pray for you in the morning. You pray for yourself through the night. Don't call my mom at 3 o'clock in the morning. You know what I'm saying? And she didn't like it necessarily, but I'm like, Mom, we can't. I seen up close and personal the effects that had on my grandmother, and the stress and things that put on her, trying to be a good leader, trying to look out for the people, but the
Mhm.
people don't always look out for you. You know what I
Yes,
mean? So when
that is
people
true.
call you, they have their interest at front. You know what I'm
That
saying?
is
And that
true.
may not be necessarily the best for you. So
That is true.
we begin to put some of those things in place. So mom, you got to be able to rest. You got to have time to pray for yourself and talk to God without everybody else. You know what I'm saying? You have to
That's
have
true.
that for yourself.
That's
And if we can't keep letting people call you all kinds, because they will call. You know what I'm saying?
that's
Could
true.
you pray for me? And okay, I'm not.
No, no,
We're gonna
because
stop right there, because I'm
you
gonna go
also
way
right,
down a
because
whole nother
I want to tell
rabbit
you
hole.
something. Everything you saying is on the money. First of all, having this particular program, the foundation of it is important, because the
Mhm.
foundation is you prayed for the love of the people, and this is, to me, your program is a manifestation of your love for people, because it caught
Mhm.
my attention that what does he mean by fatherless daughters campaign? You caught my attention, but that came from the foundation of your love for the people. And then as you're there, everything that you say is true, because if I didn't have that support when it come to, okay, that's enough, people will just, because
Mhm.
we love to pray. I know your mother loved to pray, and I love to pray. We'll just pray till kingdom come. But if somebody don't put structure on there, people going they can't
Yeah.
help it. They're gonna keep milking it and
Yeah.
not meaning
Yep.
no harm, but they want it, they need it, and this, you have to say, okay,
Yeah.
when. So I'm glad you went through that. That was not a accident. I because really you just did something for me, because I asked you that question, and I said to myself, I think I'm gonna go tell my mother about, because she's still here, and
Mhm.
let her know it's because of where she used to take me as a little girl
Yeah.
in this mountain, and I'm watching her and this other lady prayed, and I remember sitting on the rock saying, I want to be just like that. So you just did something for me today. You put something in my heart, and I'm gonna pass it on to my mom. See that? Because
Yeah.
of your love
Yeah.
for the people. So here's my first question, or my second question. How long have you been speaking and podcasting?
On the speaking side, oh, I can't even tell you. It's been a long time, some years. Because again, growing up in the church as a kid, then kind of be actually becoming a associate minister when I was um 25, 24, 25. I'll be 50 this year, right? So that's been speaking since that.
Well, I'm
Yeah,
still
and then
55.
podcasting, I've been podcasting probably 4 years, about 4 years I've been podcasting.
Okay, that
So
sounds good.
yeah.
Okay. What was your first speaking engagement?
So my first speaking engagement was a surprise, right? And so we go all the way back. Again, being raised in church, one of the things that we did, we had a youth night once a month at our church, and so this particular day, should I say, wasn't a night, but it's the whole day. This particular day, the youth did everything. Right, so we were the ushers, we were the speakers, like the whole program. The youth would run, and so also the youth would speak. So we would have a youth speaker, and the girl who was over the youth, our youth department, she probably was only like in her early 20s, at that time. Just kind of thinking back myself, um, maybe she probably wasn't even 20 yet, like 18, 19. Anyway, but every month when this day came and it was time for the speaker, she would always speak because we was teenagers or whatever. We're like, yeah, whatever. You know what I'm saying? We let you do that. And so this one particular night, she got up and she was getting ready to speak. And again, my grandmother was the pastor at that time, and she like stopped everything. And she was like, we have a whole youth department. You know what I'm saying? Why do we have the same speaker every month? Right. And so she said, I'm gonna choose somebody. So she picked me and my cousin and said, y'all
Wow.
got 3 minutes. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
luckily for me, he went up first. So that gave me 3 minutes to find the scripture and everything. And so that was my very first speaking engagement. I think I
What
probably was like 15
I'm going to
years
tell you,
old. And it was just
from
like,
what you saying, I'm going to tell you what I'm hearing. I'm just hearing this was like the steps of you coming up with your mentorship program, that it started from church, and it started from your mom, it started with you. It's like they were pulling your mission out by putting
mhm,
you on stage to start it speaking. So that's beautiful. Now here's my favorite question. What is your connection to fatherless daughters? I can't
yes.
wait to hear that one.
Yeah. So again, everything, and I always say, one of my things I always say is purpose leaves clues, right? And so just like everything that just spoke about with my mom and all of that, not even recognizing that those were clues and little breadcrumbs to where my life was being led. Um, and like you said in the introduction, I was raised in a two-parent household, right? So my mom and dad married my whole life. I got 8 siblings, 9 of us all together, and so that was my introduction to marriage, family, and all of that. But I did have friends and family and other extended family who were being raised by single parents, whether it was the mom or the dad. And I noticed that early, that distinction between the two. What I didn't notice until years later, I was married, came out of a divorce, and reflecting back on my marriage and things, and I realized that every woman I had ever talked to or dated was a fatherless daughter.
Wow.
And so I kind of thought about that, like, wow, I never noticed it. I never put those together. And then, mind you, this is late 20s, shoot, not even late 20s, maybe 30s, inside my 30s, and so I started reflecting back on that. And so again, me having a heart for people, I'm like, okay, since for whatever reason I'm attracted to or attracting this demographic of women, so what can I do to help? And so I started a page on Instagram called Friends of Fatherless Daughters. And so I just went on there as a father, one, because I have one biological child, which is my daughter, as a father, as a brother to five sisters, as a son, being able to watch my father my five sisters. And
Mhm.
then I began to do more reading and studying into, the effects of fatherlessness and fatherless daughters and all of that. So putting all that together, I started this page called Friends of Fatherless Daughters on Instagram. And so I would just go on and just kind of give my opinion on different things that I felt would help the different demographic of fatherless daughters, some of the things that they missed, some of the things they looked over, you know, um, and that
Is it
really
okay? Is it
began.
okay if I interrupt you?
Yes,
Because
ma'am.
you are throwing some really good stuff, and it was like, oh wait. So what you saying that? Because the thing is, a lot of us, the way our mind is shaped, that we think that the only time people have authority to speak about something, you have to literally get in it. Like, for instance, you had to see or become, or your daughter had to become fatherless, or you had to be raised in a home that didn't have no father for you to have the authority to speak that. Because when I heard you say that, I was trying to search and see, okay, where did that come from? How did that birth? Because our mind, so society shaped our mind that only time we have experience if we had to kind of live it one way. And
Mhm,
what you are saying, you lived it a different way. You didn't live it from home because you were raised with two loving parents that had a lot of children, you had a lot of siblings. So how God picked somebody from a family that was raised by two parents and to give a mission such as fatherless, because it went through you being attracted or married a woman and being attracted and dated women that was fatherless. So your experience, your mission was birthed from a different experience, which
mhm.
still carry weight and it carried authority. And I mean, you just saying so much right now that I'm just popping like
Mm,
popcorn on the inside, really,
yeah.
because a lot of people miss their mission because they think it have to be birthed one way. Because like it could be anything about children, and this way you don't have no children, how do you know? But it was birthed through something else. Just like your
Mhm,
story, it's just really amazing that you were able to see that mission birth through the fact that you married or kept being attracted to women that was fatherless, but you didn't have that from home.
mhm.
So it's like, okay, where did that come from? He didn't learn that from home. It was something that within that you were birthed with to
Yeah.
be in that mission. So you experience it through marriage, you experience it through relationship, you experienced it outside it, but it's still an experience. And it
Yeah.
still gave you weight to minister that to people.
Yeah.
I'm just like,
Mm.
wow, you have
Yeah,
no
and I,
idea.
and I'll and I'll even speak to that because it is something that God put in me, because this started way when I was young as a child, to be able to identify that, right? So even on the other side, I'm a mentor, right? I'm a male mentor. And again, being raised in a home with my dad, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And but recognize even at a young age that, okay, some of my friends dad's not around. Even some of my family, extended family, cousins, and some of my uncles are not around. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you this one story that I share sometime. Growing up here, I'm in Chicago. So growing up here in
Okay.
Chicago, one of the things that we did as teenagers, we played the dozens, right? And for those who don't know what that means, like when you cracking jokes on each other and you just kind of going back and forth. And I remember this one particular day, it's me and my brother and a group of our friends, probably about 10 of us, and my brother and one of our friends are kind of going back and forth, right? And so my friend started talking about my dad, right? My dad was a mechanic, so a lot of times he was oily, whatever, because he's like, he's doing his work. And so my friend goes on this tangent, right? He goes on this chat. He's just going joke after joke, about my dad. He just cracking jokes, right? And everybody's laughing. My brother's not saying anything. And it gets to the point where he's like, all right, he's finished, And so now it's like my brother's turn to go. And so my brother said calmly, you know what's funny? You can tell me everything about my dad. I can't tell you anything about yours.
Ooh.
And in that moment, as teenagers, we're like, oh, whatever. But that went right here to me and right
Wow.
here at a young age. I never forgot that.
Wow.
And it was like, man, I want to be a mentor. I want to be a
Wow.
male man. And like I said, I'm really young. So really not even knowing what a mentor was, but I knew I wanted to be that person who represented my father, who was to the point where my father didn't necessarily take out time and sit down with my friends and that, but just his presence. You know what I mean? And I'll even say this, even for my friend to be able to have enough material to
Ah,
have jokes to say about my dad, mean he
yes.
had to be paying attention. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? He had to
Yes.
be watching. He had to notice, the different things that my dad said or did or whatever for him to even be able to make a joke about it,
Yes.
right? And so it was like just that presence of my dad being there at a young age. I recognized that, and I was like, I want to do that. So
Yes.
even now, going back, fast forward now as a mentor, one of the things that I talk about when I do present myself in front of our mentor boys that we have is the fact that every story doesn't start the same. Because a lot of times, again, you do hear all these mentors, the male mentors, and a lot of them are part of our organization that when they go to speak, it's like, okay, I didn't have my father and I got into this and this happened and whatever. And so now I
Mhm.
want to be a mentor. And I'm like, that's not my story. You know what I mean? My story is I did have a great father. And then because I had a great father, that I want to be a mentor because I want to be that person who my father was to me, to these
Mhm.
other young boys who don't have that example, who didn't grow up with
Mhm.
that example. And even to some of the men who are now mentors beside me and brothers beside me who didn't have the experience that I had. So
Mhm.
even though we all adults now, but I'm still able to share some of the wisdom that I learned from my dad with these other men who grew up without their dads, who now are trying to mentor these young boys as well, to even be able to pour into them as well as the young boys so that we still getting the benefits of me having a father in my life. You know what I'm saying? And so, yeah, so those things just came early and even before I even knew what it was. It
Wow.
just that was that desire that God put in me. And so, yeah, so it wasn't whether it's the fatherless daughters or the mentor, it wasn't from a negative point. I had the positive examples of what that looked like, which
Wow.
birthed in me to be that same example to others.
Now, here's another nugget you just said, that a lot of us don't use things that is positive in our lives to mentor people. We always use the negative and said, "Oh, I've been on drugs or I've been on this and that." But the person that didn't or that wasn't on drugs or didn't have that experience, nobody wants to hear from them because they feel like they have nothing to say, because we're not used to the positive mentorship. We
Mm-hmm.
used to the negative. Everything got to be birthed out of negative, but that's not true. There is something, hearing about even your story with your dad, that does something to you because your dad was there and your friends was able to pick up, and that was $1 million wisdom that your brother said. Let me tell you, for you to have this much information about my dad because he was present, and I don't have that much information about your dad because your dad wasn't present. So your positivity about your home is still a place of mentorship. Because nobody, if somebody don't have that, you have that, you could bring that to the table to what it looks like. Like
Yeah.
somebody have a good marriage, even though everything wasn't good, but the good part could come to the table and said, I have something to share from the good part. So I
Mhm.
love that. I love that part that you have. The positivity can be part of mentorship
Yeah.
because we are trained for the negative to be part of the mentorship, but it doesn't have to be. But literally, you are an example of what God have chosen to say, I'm choosing you to birth that out of you, but I'm not going to birth it through an experience from home. I'm
Mhm.
going to birth it to you watching other people and going through that experience outside of your home, but let you birth the positive part from your home. I
Yeah.
that just spoke volume. I love
And I even say this because even as a mentor, that has sometimes that's a roadblock, right? Two, when you're going to mentor young boys who already been through whatever, like they already been through the trenches, right? And so when I come and I don't have that trench story, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, why should I listen to you? Right. And so I always give the example of my brother. My brother is literally 1 year and 11 days younger than me. Right. So my
wow.
birthday is May 1st, 1976. His birthday is May 11th, 1977. So he's 1 year younger than me.
Wow.
But we are exact opposites, right? So grew up same mom, same dad, same household. But when you look back and you think about the whole analogy of the good son and the bad son, that was us, right? So I was the good son, he was the bad son at a young age, just like everything that I've just said that I noticed at a young age, my brother had this thing of, I want to go this way. You know what I'm saying?
Oh.
So when I say everything negative that you can get into, even now as adults, we talk about it. And he was like, that's just what I wanted to do. You
Uh,
know, so just at a young age, like gangs, drugs, selling, whatever, that whole thug life, grew up in the church now, you know what I'm saying? But just at a young age, he was just like, that's the lifestyle I want to do. And so that's how he went. And regardless of, my dad getting on him and everything that, he's just like, you know what I'm saying? I'm still
but
going.
but you just said something. It doesn't mean that just be people that do drugs and have that lifestyle, we assume that they must didn't have a home training. So
Yep.
you just have a perfect picture that you could use when you use that when you have that roadblock. That wait
Yeah.
a minute, I had a brother that made that decision, and our home didn't portray that. He
Right.
still had good home training. He had both parents, and he still went and made bad decisions.
Yeah.
So it
And,
doesn't mean that it's the home all the time. Sometimes
yeah.
it's just the child making that decision.
Right.
That's what they want.
And that's how I present it to even my mentees, right? That okay, this is my brother's story. Like he had a hard life that he chose. You know what I mean? All the things that he got into, he chose to get into. Right? It wasn't even a reflection of the life that he lived or the house that he was raised up in. It was
Exactly.
just that just was what he wanted to do. I went the opposite way. You know what I mean? I said,
Exactly.
but the thing that joins us together is one thing, and that one thing is we both had a choice. We both had a
That's
choice.
it.
We started
That's
from the
it.
same point. We
That's it.
everybody starts with a choice.
That's
Everybody starts with that same spot. And so
ah,
when I'm talking to the boys, I just say I made a different choice. You know what
that's
I'm
right.
saying? And
Exactly.
because of your choices, you are here, but now you're at a crossroad now because now you get to make another choice.
Ah,
And so that's how I present it, because again, like I said, sometimes when you get the young boys that I done been through this and I'd have been arrested and I'd have been whatever, you ain't did none of that. Why should I listen to you? Because I made a great choice. So you
exactly.
need to learn how to make some
And
better
I'm an
choices.
example.
You know
I'm an
what I'm
example
saying?
of the good choice that you should make, that
Right.
you should have made, that you can make from now on. I love that story. I love that. But I mean, from home, it really tells people that it does not have to do with just the type of home you come from. It just
Mhm.
have to do with choices. And what you just said, a lot of people don't like to accept that. Well, I didn't have a choice. Yes, you do.
Mhm.
Everybody that is born have a choice, the type of life they want to live. Everything is in front of you, but I choose to do that. Even somebody, because I've heard the story that says what their father was an alcoholic. The son said, I'm choosing not to be an alcoholic because I watched my father was an alcoholic.
Mhm.
So it's all about choices. And I love that you have that to break that barrier and said it's about choices. You keep thinking you have to live that because you don't have a choice. That's not true. You could have grown up in the worst environment there is. But if you choose to say, I don't want to be like that, it is a possibility that open up for you not to be like that. So I like that. So basically, that's your block of foundation to the teenagers or the young men. You do have a choice because we
Mhm.
need to stop thinking that we don't. We were all born with a choice in life. So I love that. You got some good stuff going on. I love it. This you are in mental health advocate, and I would love to hear how did that happen and why.
Yes, yes. So I mentioned about going through a divorce, right? So a couple of years ago, um, I talked about, actually last year I did my, what's the last year? The year before last, it was the year before last. I did my first TEDx talk, right? And I talked about, this was kind of the script, the story that I talked about. Um, but a couple of years ago, I was living the American dream. You know what I mean? Like, I was young, I was married, I had a good job. My wife had a good job at the time. We had my daughter. We had already bought our first house, and then I was still in my 20s. We had already bought our first house. She had a Camry that she loved. I had a pickup truck and a motorcycle and all the toys, and like everything was good. And then everything started. And I always say, I was living that American dream. Then that dream started turning into a nightmare, right? And so the economy. I'm a bricklayer by trade, so I'm in construction. We kind of went through a recession, so the work dropped because the work wasn't there. That affected my finances, which definitely affects your marriage. When the money stopped not being right, you know what I mean. So that affected the marriage. And then my mother-in-law, who I was very close to and loved very dearly, she got sick and ended up passing away.
Oh,
So then that affected my marriage even more with my wife at the time, who was a fatherless daughter and
mhm,
who had only been just her and her mom. And so now her mom is gone. So that, put her in a different space,
mhm.
and so then that happened. And then not long afterwards, my mom also got sick. And then my mom passed away as well.
Oh my God.
So I'm in debt. I'm depressed because of some of those things. I'm going through a divorce, and I lose two of the women that I loved the most, which was my mother-in-law and my mom at the time, right?
Mhm,
And so that sent me in a deep depression and a deep downfall, and got to the space where I started having suicide ideations because it's like, dude, everything is going wrong. You know
okay.
what I mean? And it's like, how can I get out of this space and not being able to control any of the controllables? Like, all of that was out of my control. Like, the only thing that I probably could have a little bit controlled would probably be the marriage. But at that point, and even if it wasn't at that point, but even with a marriage, it takes two people. So even if I was like, no, I'm staying and we're going to make it work, if she says I'm out, what you going to do? So you still don't have control of that either. So everything that I was going through, I couldn't control, and it all was going downhill. And so I was in this space of, really feeling hopeless and helpless, and started having suicidal ideations, and was thinking about, just taking my own life. And there was a moment that I had with my daughter that changed everything. And so this one day, we're sitting out in front of the house, me and her. I got the little kiddie pool out. I got the sprinklers out. She probably was like maybe 7 at this time, 7 or 8, something around that age. And I'm sitting on the porch and I'm watching her play. Right. And so she's running in the sprinklers and jumping in the little kiddie pool and all of that. And she's just having a little ball, you know what I mean? And I'm sitting on the porch just watching her, and she's running back and forth in the water, and then she stops and she runs to me. And so when she runs to me, she starts crying, and I'm like, what's wrong? You know what I mean? Like, because nothing
Yeah,
happened.
yeah,
And
yes.
she looked at me and she said, I miss my grandmothers. And this
Oh,
was just out of the blue. You know what I'm saying? Like, she
oh
was
my
playing
God.
or whatever, and she just, ran over to me. She started crying, and she's like, I miss my grandmothers. And like I said, she's only like 7, but she's aware enough to know and realize like my grandmothers are not here.
Oh wow.
So in that moment, with everything that I was going through, my daughter, again, my daughter's my only biological child, and she was a daddy's girl, still is, a daddy's girl, but she was a daddy's girl, especially at that time. Everywhere I went, my daughter was with me,
Oh,
and everybody like, "Where's your shadow?" You know what I mean? Because she was with me all the time. And I'm looking at this little girl, and I'm like, what would happen to her if I'm not here?
ah,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
in
Unthinkable.
that moment, it really changed everything for me because I was faced with the fact, not even me, right? Not even how I felt, but what would happen to my daughter if I'm not here? And so that kind of changed everything for me. And it was like, you know what? If for no other reason,
Mhm, mhm,
I
mhm.
have to stay here for her. I have to
Exactly.
make sure that she's good. And that was kind of the beginning of things starting to change, starting to turn around.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I went through some things that kind of helped later on, that I even used to help others that's kind of going through that same thing. But that was the start, just that moment that I had with my daughter, and it was like I can't leave her, because if she's feeling this way, that in the midst of all the joy that she was just having, to have a moment that clicked in her head that said, well, as happy as I am right now,
Mhm.
this moment of despair came just that fast, that she
So,
recognized it in that moment. I'm like, I can't leave her to
so
to deal with that.
mentally, that also says if even at a young age, for her to have missed her grandmother, the women that you have dated and married, maybe having that mental stop one day and realize this space didn't have a father mentally. So they react, then the relationship fall apart, all because they hit that spot, that, how would they
Mhm.
say, whatever that pothole of
Yeah.
life, that there was no father, so they don't know what to do. And so it's instead of getting help, what I do, I take it out on the man I'm in relationship with, because now you're reminding me that I miss that father moment,
Yeah.
that void of not having a father. So that's
Yeah.
what that's
And
that's
that
amazing. That's
and
amazing.
that plays a part too. Once you really start getting into the effects of fatherlessness and dealing with abandonment and what's the other word? Abandonment, and I'm gonna say self-sacrifice because I can't think of the wording that they actually use. Self-sabotage. That's what it is. And
Okay.
so when you think
Oh yeah.
about how that's played out in relationships with me, where things are going really good. You know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
and I've been married twice, and so I would say in my second marriage, this is one of the things that I dealt with, because things was going really good, at least from my eyes. But one of the things with fatherless daughters is that, that space of always waiting for the other shoe to drop. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, things is going good,
It's
but
too good
you
to
know
be
what I'm saying?
true.
Yeah, yeah, because like
Yeah.
my dad left. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Why you
So
still here?
you're you know what I'm saying? Like you putting up a good front, but I think at any moment you might be like, all right, I'm out.
Yeah.
And so where that self-sabotage come in is, it's like, okay, if I can control it, then I can say when you leave.
Yeah.
And so now, because I'm unsure and I don't know whether you're going to leave or not, then I begin to self sabotage and say, "I'll give you a reason to leave. At least I'm in control of that." So
That's
then you start, doing little things or reacting in a certain way that starts to make things go bad.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
then when things go bad, then it's like, well, I knew you was going to leave anyway. But like, not really. Like you know what I'm saying? Like you sabotaged it to the point that I wanted to leave. You know what I'm saying? But
Exactly.
in their mind, that's the control that they have to
Yeah.
protect themselves.
Yeah.
Is I can control when you leave. So at least I'm not caught off guard. You know what I'm saying? At least I'm not,
That is
thinking
true.
that everything is happy and then you just bounce and then I'm distraught. At least this way I'm in control. And so those are one of those things that that plays a part too. When you don't have that example, and again, when you start to recognize that you are missing something or something is different, You can
Mhm.
either seek for help or you can seek for
Yeah, yeah,
control.
most people
Control
won't.
don't always
Yeah, they won't
always work
admit
out right.
that's the problem. You right? They won't
Mhm.
admit that the problem, so they won't seek for help. That's unfortunate. So I'm hoping that when somebody hear you, that will cause them to stop and say, "Let me think. Let me examine myself, examine my ways and the way I've been handling things. Maybe it is something that have to do with being fatherless." I'm praying and hoping that women will do that because it does. With uh, there's so much that could happen in relationship and or in marriage, and I don't want it. People will take it as, well, you just trying to blame me. It's not about a blame,
Yeah,
but it's about a realistic thing that is happening mentally to us women, that
yeah,
we have to admit and get help. And getting help does not mean you're weak. It actually means you're strong, because you're strong enough to admit there's a problem. Like you said, first I have to admit my problem, deal with my problem, heal from it, and then my purpose, whether it's marriage, relationship, whatever it is, can be birthed. But
yeah,
until I deal with it and heal from it, all I'm doing is bringing toxic into the relationship. So,
yeah.
and you said you dealt with suicide. How did you overcome that suicide thought?
So when I had the moment with my daughter, right, that started to birth me having a new passion and a new desire to live. Like, because no other reason, I'm standing here for this little girl.
Mm-hmm.
So in the midst of that, what does that mean for me? And so I have an acronym. I'm a person that loves acronyms, but I have an acronym that I talk about, and it's the fun acronym, right? So FUN stands for fun, and it stands for focus, unite, and normalize. And so it started with the focus. So when I was focusing on me and everything that I had going on, that's how I ended up in this space of suicide ideation, because with everything that I was focusing on, I couldn't change any of it. I couldn't change none of the things that was happening to me. So when I had that moment with my daughter, then I said, okay, I'm gonna change my focus and I'm gonna focus everything on this little girl. You know what I mean? I'm gonna try to do whatever I can to make sure she has the best life possible and the best version of me possible. And so that became my focus. And so I have had this conversation with a therapist, and they was like, "Well, Ernest, we teach our clients to focus on themselves and focus on the whatever." And I said, "I'm not a therapist. So I can't tell you, what's right or wrong, but I can tell you what worked for me. And focusing on me got me into a bad space. But when I started to focus on my daughter, that began to help me to get out of that space. And so whether you focus on yourself or focus on a loved one or a purpose, on a mission, or whatever you need to focus on to give your life some newfound direction and purpose, then focus on that. Right. So the F stands for focus. Then the U stands for unite. One of the things that I did in that process was I started going to a bereavement support group, right? Because again, my mom had passed away, my mother-in-law had passed away. So I went to this bereavement support group, and I've stayed there, and I'm, uh, going through my sessions, right? That I had, I think it's like 8 sessions. So I go through my sessions and I love it, right? And so I end up becoming a volunteer, and I stayed there for a year as a volunteer. And then after my year, I decided to leave, but I started a nonprofit called Ann Christine Charities. My mother's name was Ann, my mother-in-law name was Christine. So I
Oh,
started this nonprofit called Ann Christine Charities, which was bringing bereavement support to our communities, right?
oh,
Because while I was there for that whole year, I was there was only one other African American family that came through those services.
wow.
And being on the other side of it, as being a minister, being active in church, like I know we're having funerals all the time. You know what I mean? So I know that people are passing. I know that this is happening. Yet this resource is not being, I won't say not being offered, but maybe we don't even know about it, right? And so that became my thing with the with that. So I started that program of doing that. So and I'll tell a story about that too before I finish. So the last part. So that's the U for unite. So unite with like-minded people and with like-minded experiences, right? Because I was in this bereavement group and I'm able to hear and share with other people of their loss and
Yeah,
losing,
yeah,
spouses and children, and what I'm saying, and even hearing how they lost, you know what I mean?
yeah,
And we had this one woman who had twin daughters, She lost both of her twin daughters. Someone came into her house and murdered both of her daughters.
Oh my
You know what I
goodness.
mean? And so
Yeah.
you're able to sit in this room with people who have different types of loss that's
Yes.
experiencing some, depending on how you want to look at it, that's much worse than yours or not as bad as yours, however you want to look at it. But you're able to come together and grieve together and support
Yeah.
each other and pray together. And so that's that unity that you get when you find that right community. And so the F is focus, the U is unite, and then the N is find your new normal. And so while I was in the bereavement, one of the terms that I learned about was that new normal, and realizing that, okay, what was normal before is not going to be normal again. My mom's not here. That's not normal. My mother-in-law is not here. That's not normal. I'm not married anymore. That's not normal. Like all the things that was my normal has all changed. But now I have this new normal. I have this new space that, okay, if I can still find the light, if I still can find the joy, and I still can find the mission and the purpose in this new season that I'm in, then that becomes my new normal. And if I can embrace this new normal, this new space that I'm in, then I still can move forward, right? And so that's the fun acronym is focus, unite, and normalize. And those were the things that I went through that helped me to get out of that space of suicidal ideations, where I began to have this, another zest to live. And then also when we talk about deal, heal, and fulfill, after that healing part, you get to the part of fulfilling your purpose. And then I started to look at these different areas that my life had took this change in, dealing with the fatherless daughters, dealing with, the young boys who I want to be a mentor to, dealing with people passing away, right? And so all of those things became my purpose now. So now I have this new purpose of, okay, how can I be a help? How can I, make a difference in the lives of these people? And I want to share this story, which kind of goes all the way back to how we started. And one of the things that I mentioned about is purpose leaves clues, right? So this one night, I'm probably 17 or 18 at this time. Me and my cousin, it's probably like 10 o'clock at night. And we go to the corner store, which is down the street from my house. We go to this corner store. We go in there. We get in whatever we came for, just some, I don't know, some pop or something. I don't know, whatever we went to go get. So we go to the corner store. We, getting our stuff. And so we go to get in line. Um, we go to get in line for the cash register. And it's probably like maybe 4 or 5 people in front of us, right? As we're going to get in line. So while we're going, these two guys walk in, right? Now these are adult men. I was like I said, 18, 19, still young adult, but these two guys that walk in, they are definitely like 20s, late 20s and 30s. Like they are full adults. And it's a smaller guy who's part of like 5'4", part of like, my size. And then there's a big guy that he with that could have been like a football player. Like this guy's huge. They walk into the store and the big guy is crying. Now these are two African American men, first of all. So number one, we ain't showing our emotions like that. You know what I
Okay.
mean? Then in public, we definitely ain't showing our emotions like that.
Okay.
So the two guys walk in, and like I said, the big guy is crying, and the smaller guy is trying to, just trying to console him or whatever. So they end up getting in line for the register right in front of us, right? And so just kind of listening to as they were kind of talking, I can tell that it was a female who had passed away. Don't know if it was a mother, girlfriend, don't know, but I know it was a female, and they're talking and they're kind of going back and forth, and then the big guy turns and he takes his fist and he hits the top of the counter, right? And it's like one of those things in the movie where everything stops.
Yes.
It was like
Like
that.
a movie.
Boom, he hit the top of that register and it's like boom, and it like echoes throughout the store. Everything stops, right? And everybody turns to look at him and he's like, I just want some cigarettes. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so everybody that was in front of him just like step back. It's like, what I'm saying? Get this guy a cigarette. Yeah. So he goes to the front, he buys the cigarettes, they walk out the door. I don't think I've ever seen them guys before that moment. I've never seen them after that moment. But that moment stayed in my head. even though in the back of my head it stayed in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward, when I'm going through this bereavement and I'm going through my bereavement, that story came back to my head. It's like, that's why I have to be able the one to now bring these resources to our community,
Right.
because that moment in my teens, now mind you, at this point I'm like 30 something myself, so this is years in between that, but that moment connected with the moment that I was in now of losing, my mom and my mother-in-law at that time, came together and said, this was part of your purpose. And so
Wow.
again, I started that nonprofit doing just that, bringing that
You
bereavement
just
to
keep having these pocket scenarios, being in the right
mhm.
place at the right time, really giving you clues, as you said, to your purpose. So
Yeah.
God had you here, and remember, and you said somebody else probably wouldn't ever remember that, but because
Hmm.
it's part of your purpose, that stayed with you because God was still showing you. Let me walk you through life and show you who you really are, what
Yeah.
your purpose is, about watching people go through grief and watching, okay, this is what I need to do because look what's happened. Like you said, this big old man was still crying, not normally in public,
Yeah.
because of grief. So all of that was the making of you mentally as well as emotionally of what you need to do in life. This
Yeah.
is good, and you're doing a whole lot of stuff and helping other people now, be with the
Mhm.
mentorship. Because I know I really kind of want to hear just a little bit more about the man up when you are mentoring young men as well as, or do you do both of those together, the fatherless daughter with the man up
No, no. So those are two separate two
mentorship
separate
program?
two separate programs. And I kind of stepped back from both of them, just because once I started doing the podcast and everything that details, I kind of went a different way a little bit. So I am going to go back. I don't know if I'm gonna do like a online course or something like that to still have those resources available. But it just were two separate things. So the man up kind of goes back to what I was saying was, so the man up stands for men activating newly untapped potential. And so again, with the acronyms, that's me. So that's where the man up came from. And so what I started doing was I wanted to again mentor these young boys. And so I created this whole curriculum of things that I wanted to teach and to show them. And one of the things that came up, which is like I said earlier, that I realized that okay, I'm trying to reach these young boys, but there are men who also grew up without their fathers, who are men now that still don't have these same foundational things that I learned as a child. So even though they are adult men now, same as the fatherless daughters, they're still missing a part of that foundation. And so I kind of expanded it from just being young boys to, young men as well, like early 20s, to try to help them get those same things.
But
Um,
you still have an opportunity as a speaker, as a podcaster,
mhm.
to still speak on those
Yeah,
issues, so somebody could listen to one of your YouTube or whatever YouTube channel that you have, or when you speak podcast, to listen to one of the wisdom that you give to the men and the wisdom that you give to women with the fatherless. So you're still doing something.
yeah,
You just maybe not traditionally like everybody else, but your words and your wisdom is still out there to help people if they really want to be helped. But
yeah,
I love the statement about, you first have to deal with your problem, heal with your pain, and fulfill your purpose. That's big. Because
yeah,
a lot of
yeah.
it, just like you have that shirt that said deal, you have to deal, heal, and fulfill.
Yeah,
That's
that's my whole. So as I was going through my process, right, and dealing and going through everything, that was what God gave me, you know, as I began to go through, and then even gave me that motto of the deal, heal, fulfill. And so everything that I do is built around that now, right? So I got the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I got Deal to Heal Tees, which is an inspirational t-shirt line. A Deal to Heal podcasting network, which is my YouTube channel that has, several podcasts on there. So everything is kind of built around that. And even now, probably by the time this come out, it'll be up, which is my new school community, which is Deal to Heal School for Living. And I just started my new nonprofit, which is Deals to Heal the World. So everything is kind of built around that now, because that is the mission, is to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with their problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill their purpose, which is the exact thing that I'm doing now, right? It's the exact process that I went through, that God gave me. Like, all right, now you have to present this to the world to help others to go through
I
that
think
same
that's gonna be
process.
big. That's gonna be because I know people are in the fulfill part, but they have not
Mhm.
done with the deal part. So we gotta drag them from fulfilling and say, no,
Right.
no, 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 you gotta go back and deal with this person here before you fulfill. Because a lot of time when people receive prophecy, they're talking about the fulfill part. But once
Mhm.
you get that, you still have to go through the process of deal, heal before you fulfill. So that I know that is really big what you're doing, and I believe it's going to help a lot of people, especially in the pool of fulfill. We have to
Yeah.
go fish him out and say, "Come out, come out." You need to go back to the pool of deal first.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I appreciate you for sharing your story today.
Yeah.
And when I heard it, you really caught my attention. And we're going to stay connected. And I'm going to do whatever I can to help in whatever area we could help to have people. I want you to people to reach out to you to your email. Let's put your email up, that reach out to you, that wants to maybe volunteer, that wants to help in any type of way. You see the email Ernest
Yeah.
James at dealhealfulfill.org. I
Yes,
love that.
ma'am.
You got to send me a t-shirt. I love that. I really,
I
because we have the
know
deal.
that.
I'm like, I could do a school of thought on that. You got the deal. So I
Yeah.
have to have a t-shirt. I have to have a t-shirt, Ernest. So thank you
Mhm.
so much for joining. And I want everybody to please listen to the podcast, share it with your friends and family, especially your teenagers and people, single mothers and single fathers, and people that, married people that's fatherless, women that's fatherless. Share this podcast with them, and whatever wisdom, that nugget that you could pull out that could help you to fulfill your call and your purpose on earth in a healthy manner, in a more successful way, and by healing first and by dealing with the problem in healing. So I appreciate everybody. Thank you, Mr. James, for joining us on this podcast today. I look forward to us doing more, and connecting and doing more and helping others, especially fulfilling what your mother said,
Yeah.
learning to love people, and you're loving people by even spreading this information and share with other people and mentoring young men. So I appreciate you for that, and I thank you everybody for joining us, and you have yourself an absolutely fabulous day, and share this podcast with someone that needs this wisdom. Have a great day.